Hello everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Dinner Guide. My name is Chef Andy, and today I'm going to be taking you on a beautiful tour of a very simple dish that comes from the the third biggest island in the continent of Africa, and that would be Madagascar. And I'm actually going to be taking you through a beautiful grandma pot. Remember, we're doing a series of episodes which are basically focusing on very classic dishes, but very traditional dishes that are actually a bit of a reminder of all the Christmas season that we have here in Africa. So particularly today we'll be focusing on Madagascar, and just to get the show on the roll, we're going to start by introducing the ingredients. So I'm going to be using some cherry tomatoes, some ginger there, a bit of some seeded chili, some white onion, some peas, some garlic, a bit of leeks and carrots, a bit of pumpkins leaves there, some basmati rice, a bit of some chunky tomatoes. I'm also going to be using some fresh coriander and some fresh mustard leaves, regular salt, a bit of parsley, a bit of green beans, some chicken breast, some pork loin, and last but not least, some vegetable stock. So without further ado, we are going to set the ball on the roll by letting you actually grab this chance and grab your pieces of paper and pens if you're taking notes for this particular recipe, and just to refresh yourselves. And when we come back, we're just going to go dive into it, and I'm going to show you how this very simple dish is created. So please don't touch the dial. We'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We took a short commercial break, and now we are back, and we're just about to start this very simple dish. So I'm just going to first off start by just unwrapping our cuts of meat. So as I mentioned earlier, very simple dish that comes from the island of Madagascar. Very influential dish in that it is actually a very staple dish. And particularly on the festive seasons, the festive part of the season, you actually have a lot of families really coming together and creating this dish in very different, diverse techniques. So I'm actually going to use one particular one that I actually brought with me from there. It is so simple. It doesn't actually require anything but just some fresh ingredients and a bit of love, and I'm sure you're all going to enjoy it. So I'm going to start off by just heating up the big pot that we're going to be working with. And we're just going to give that a bit of time to heat, but while that continues, I'm going to start off by dicing this beautiful piece of chicken. So I'm just going to put my knife right through the center there, and I'm going to just cut that into some beautiful chunks. So we're going to take time first of all and brown our meat. So as you're going to be able to see, we're going to take some time and brown our meat, and then we're going to actually start incorporating the rest of the ingredients. And I'm just going to grab a board just for the pork. I'm also just going to cut that up into chunks and probably just try and get that bone out as well. Right, simple as that. And we're going to do the same for this other nice beautiful chunk. So particularly for this dish, very crucial that you actually brown the meat first. Remember, a lot of flavors build at that particular point. and it actually aids you in cooking your meat a little, helps you to cook your meat a little faster. And third but not least, it's actually just the best way to start this particular dish. Remember, as I said, it's a very, very traditional kind of technique that's used to prepare this. And as you know, with grandma pots, they were very, very traditional with the techniques they cooked with and even with the speed they cooked with. But particularly, most of their dishes always ended up actually being cooked in one pot in general. So we're just going to give that a few seconds to heat, and while that continues, I'm going to add just about 2 cups of stock to this pot. And we're also just going to get that going on our burner. So we're going to be cooking our rice in some stock as opposed to cooking it in some water. So I'm going to start off by just giving that a nice generous drizzle of olive oil. And as you can see, pan is nice and smoking, very hot. And we're just going to drop our meat in there. And all we are going to do now is just brown the meat. And this should actually be a very, very quick process. Remember, if you're using a very hot pan, it should actually take you a very short time to do so. And all you want to do instead is actually just get a bit of flavor in the pot, get the meat to get a bit of color, and then we're just going to start building all the other ingredients to it. Right, so while that continues, I'm just going to quickly season the stock on the side here. So I'm going to add about a teaspoon of salt and about just 2 teaspoons of olive oil. And we're just going to allow that to come to the boil. Right, so this should actually take you a very, very short time, as I said, anywhere between 5 and 7 minutes to really just give the pork a bit of browning. Also, it actually helps also to cook down all that excess fat that is actually surrounding all that pork. And the beautiful thing about browning your meat first, it actually builds the flavor and it actually helps to really get the meat tender. Right, so that's about just beautifully colored. And what you're going to do is we're going to move that onto the plate on the side. And I'm actually going to be browning. Remember, all the meat is actually going to go into one pot. So don't be too worried about contaminating your meat. You should actually be fine right through this whole dish. So I'm just going to add a bit of oil again. And we're going to go in and add our chicken. So as you can see, my pan is really hot. It's really, really smoking. So that should actually be able to tell you that the pan should actually be very hot. Remember, the idea of browning meat is always to do it at high heat and as fast as possible. Remember, there's 2 things that particularly happen to this, to meat when you actually do this. First of all, it helps to really relax the muscles in the meat. And what happens is, as soon as it hits the pan and comes out to rest, it actually starts to really just ooze out some juices and really relax and tenderize. So very, very crucial point. Right, so while our chicken continues, we're going to quickly just rinse off our rice. And for that, I like to use a sieve for that. So I'm just going to pour my rice into the sieve. And all we are going to do is give that a quick rinse under the tap. So this should actually take you about 5 to 6 seconds just to do it really, if you're doing it really quick, or about 10 seconds just at a regular pace. And all you do at that stage, once you have some clear water running through your sieve into the sink there, you should actually be able to detect it. All we are going to do is give that a few seconds to drain. Right, and I'm just going to turn that pan off for a little bit. Now our chicken is just nicely, beautifully browned, so we are just going to move that onto the side as well, and we're just going to allow those to rest. Okay, so in the meantime, remember we're also going to be serving this with some rice, so I'm just going to move the rice into the pot now. Remember, as I always insist, always give it a shake, make sure to get rid of the excess water in there. And we're just going to add that to this beautiful pot on the side, and we're just going to allow that to continue cooking. Now in the meantime, we're going to continue building our beautiful sauce. I'm just going to turn this around. I'm going to get a separate knife. So very, very simple. We're now going to start building our dish, and I'm going to start off by just chopping up some of the ingredients here. Right, so first off goes in the white onion. Right, so one medium-sized white onion should do just fine. We're also going to be adding to that about 6 cloves of garlic. So this I'm just going to simply just pat with my hand using this knife, and this actually just helps you peel the garlic really easy. So if you haven't learned of an easy technique to peel your garlic before, this is among the easiest ones you can go with. So we're just going to move those into a pestle and mortar on the side. And the reason for that is we actually need it to be a little fine, so we're going to mince it inside there, and we're just going to be pounding it until it's a little minced together. So just quickly take off the last bit of those skins off the garlic. Right, so basically you should actually be able to create this dish in a very short span of time, as I said. Very easy technique, doesn't require any other processes of cooking. Everything is a one-pot process. So you should actually be a little calm and a bit relaxed when you're actually making this particular dish. And as I said, with grandma pots, they actually, as a characteristic of how they cook, remember grandma pots were always about taking a bit of time to cook. So these are dishes that would probably take most of the afternoon to actually cook through till they're done. And the best part of them was the fact that they were stress-free, they were affordable, the price was just right, and the ingredients were always fresh. So it really warmed up the table every time it was served. Right, so quickly going to mince that. Right, and to that we're also going to add a bit of this ginger root. So I'm just going to take a bit of the skin off. I can discard the rest. And this we're just going to simply just quickly slice up, and then just quickly just roughly chop. This actually makes it a little easier to get it into your pestle and mortar and manage to work it into a paste. So simple as that. So about 5 cloves of garlic to 1 tablespoon of ginger is the way I always recommend that you go with that particular ratio. always gives you a beautiful balance and a beautiful potency as well to your mixture. So I'm just going to continue mixing the two together, pounding them continuously. Right, so that's done. So we're just going to reheat the pot again. So very crucial that you actually give your pot some time to cool off. Also allows you to try and reduce all the smoke that forms up in your room. Right, so the rice is now going really well. We're just going to take a spoon and just try and break that up quickly. So this should actually just start cooking. This should actually, for a cup that size, this should be cooking for about 6 to 8 minutes. But you might notice that the stock will actually evaporate really quickly, so I'm just going to add just a little bit more. And I'm just going to leave that covered just to allow it to come to the boil. And now on this side, we're just going to start off by building our sauce. So very simply, just a beautiful dash of olive oil. And we're going to start off by adding our garlic and ginger mixture. Remember, this particular two ingredients are normally just to give your oil a bit of a flavor. They actually help to infuse the dish really in the early stages of cooking. And last but not least, they really give a good general balance to the dish in general. So I'm just going to start frying those off. And to that, I will be adding the chunky tomatoes. I'm just going to add those early. So basically the reason for that is it actually allows them to start cooking and breaking down a little faster. So very, very crucial. Just keep mixing, and as you continue mixing, the tomatoes will continue to break down as you continue. And then to that, I will add my chopped white onion. And we're going to also be adding a bit of this beautiful leeks and a bit of the carrots. So I'm just going to quickly just chop those up. Very, very, very simple recipe, as I said. I particularly took some time to go out to Madagascar and learn this dish. And in the time I was there, I actually came across a lot of beautiful things to actually pick out when making this dish. Also an alternative to using just pork and chicken. The very traditional dish actually incorporated both the three dishes, meat, chicken and pork. But for this particular, now I'm going to just be using pork and chicken. Right, so this should actually just continue to fry as a dry mixture. So it should actually be able to help your tomatoes continue to break down and allows your sauce also to start cooking in the juices in the tomatoes. And then for the carrots, I'm just going to quickly grab a peeler. I'll need a bowl for that as well. So very, very simply, as I said, these peelers are very handy. As you can see, it really does a good job and it saves you the time. So if you do actually have a chance to actually look for one, if you don't have one already, your regular outlets out there, any outlets that actually deal with home appliances or home utensils should be able to actually get you one of these. So just to quickly finish off those two bits of carrot. Right, so simple as that. Now all we are going to do is just cut that lengthways halfway and then quarterway. And I'll do the same thing with the other piece. Just right through to the bottom and then quarterways again. And all I'm going to do is, remember, just for presentation and also just to show off the different cuts that you can work with, I like to just cut mine diagonally. So it always gives it a nice, beautiful shape. And even at the end of the dish, when you look at it, the presentation, it really actually makes a difference. So we're going to do the same for both pieces. Right, so simple as that. So I'm just going to give that a quick mix. And actually, as soon as you just start to get that beautiful smoky smell from your pot, just deglaze with a bit of chicken stock or vegetable stock. That actually should be able to actually help you cool off your pan a little bit and just give that a bit more liquid to actually help it cook down. So we're just going to allow that to continue, and I'm just going to cover it just to allow it to really just steam up really quickly. And then I'll bring your attention to this end, and our rice is just about ready. So I'm just going to run my spoon right around it like that. This is just to break the grains, and also helps just to really help the rice to dry out a little faster. Right, so just a taste of that, and it's cooked. Simple as that. And we're just going to turn that off, and we're going to leave that pan on the side, and we're going to come back to it later. So I'm just going to come back to this main dish that we are working on. So as you can be able to see as we continue, if you can be able to see it from the cameras there, the sauce is a very, very simple and basic way of building. Doesn't require any spices or any addition of any unknown ingredients at all. So as you've been able to see from the table, most of the ingredients that have gone into this are just farm fresh ingredients. They're the best to work with, and as I said, with grandma pots, the essence of building the flavor was actually in the choice of ingredients that you used, and it wasn't really in the incorporating of spices and herbs that you purchased from the shops like we do today. So to that, we're going to be incorporating some of these other ingredients. So I'm going to start off with the green beans, and with the green beans, I like to just snap them. Makes it a little easier to just work with, and it's actually a little faster. So with this, I'm just going to snap them with my fingertips. It's a little more easier, and plus what happens is they actually bruise a little less, and it actually stops them from changing color really quickly. So very simple as that, and I can move that into a bowl. Just continue the process. So like I said, it's one of the many recipes that you can actually take your time and work through. As I said, grandma pots and especially dishes that you're making on this Christmas season, they're never about rushing it. Remember, it's the longest holiday of the year for most of us. The kids are at home, you're probably on leave, or you're just taking your Christmas break, and you're just trying to use as much time as possible to bond with your family. This is definitely one of the best ways to do it. And I particularly like to do it as well myself. I always like to invite friends, or actually just take some time and teach someone how to do 2-3 things while making the dish, because as I said, it is a very slow process, but the results at the end are really, really worth it. So I'm just going to leave it at that. That should do us right for now. So I'm going to be incorporating my green beans, and I'm going to be adding my garden peas, and last but not least, we're going to go in also with our carrots and our herbs. So I'm just going to go in with the carrots first, and I'm just going to give that a quick mixture and allow those to cook for a few seconds. And remember, very particular that you actually allow enough liquid for this dish. Always have quite a bit of stock made if you're going to be working with stock. But if you optionally decide to just use regular tap water, then just make sure you have plenty of it, because the dish will actually call for quite a bit of liquid. Right. So I'm just going to start off by shredding some of these beautiful mustard leaves. And all I'm going to do is press them together on the palm of my hand. It actually helps me to chop them a little easier. We're just going to reserve those. I should have quite enough on my hand as we speak. So simple as that. Just press them against your board. Just lay them one on top of the other, and just let your knife just go right through those beautiful mustard leaves. So for those who are wondering where I managed to get mustard leaves, particularly for this demonstration, I had to get a very, very good friend to actually bring this over. But I will insist, you can always substitute the ingredients that you can't find. Remember, missing one ingredient in the dish couldn't make it so different. You can actually use something as local. So for that purpose, I was actually going to use only mustard seeds, but because of the fact that we're trying to be diverse and also bring a bit of a local touch to it, I'm also going to be using some pumpkin leaves. So these are actually very, very good, and they're actually very, very, very healthy. And the beauty of this is they break up really, really well, and they carry a very beautiful buttery kind of finish to them. Actually, when you add them to anything, that's the kind of effect they bring with them. Right, so our green beans and carrots are going, so the mixture is beautiful. You can actually see the colors in the pot. Very, very amazing. And now to that, we're going to be adding some of those pumpkin leaves. But I'm just quickly going to chop up a few more, and we're going to be incorporating the meat first. Remember, the pumpkin leaves do wilt a little quick, and you might actually look at the amount of leaves on the counter and you might think this is too much for that particular portion, but remember, they wilt really easily, and this actually just builds the dish. And as I said, it's more of a very, very colorful green dish, and you'll actually be able to see that when it's done. Right, so I'm going to start off by adding the meat and give that a quick mixture. And then to that, I'm also going to be adding my pumpkin leaves. And all we're going to do now is just cover that and give it a few minutes to cook down, and give the leaves also a bit of time to wilt down. And we're going to take a short break while that continues. That's going to be boiling for a few minutes, so we're actually going to let that continue right through the break. And when we come back, you're going to be able to see what the result looks like. And we're just going to finish it off with some of the ingredients I have remaining on the table. And we can actually just go right into plating, and I can give you some serving suggestions and some other suggestions that you might need when it comes to the ingredients in particular. So do not touch that dial. We'll be back in a short while. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are just now almost done with this beautiful dish, and I'm just going to lift the lid now. Oh, beautiful, beautiful, amazing aromas coming through. So I'm just going to quickly give that a mix. And as you can see now, it's more, it looks more like the stew that we mentioned earlier. But it still could use a bit of work, which is why I have some of these beautiful ingredients to my side here. And I'm just going to show you how this beautiful dish is finished off. So I'm just going to start off with some beautiful chopped coriander. So I'm just going to get the leaves, no stems. I'm just going to roughly shred that up quickly. Right. Just going to add a teaspoon in there. So remember, one particular beautiful thing with coriander or parsley or any other herbs that you might actually have at your disposal, they actually always bring a nice, beautiful, refining finish to the dish. Remember, first of all, the beautiful thing about herbs is that they are fresh. So what happens is, just as you expect them to be fresh, they actually bring that freshness to your dish once you use just a bit of, or rather a few varieties of them to just finish off a dish that's just about ready to be served. And I always particularly like, or I'm very fond of adding my dry, I would rather add my dry spices at the beginning and my fresh ones at the end, for the reason that you don't really have to activate the flavors and the aromas from the fresh herbs. But for the dry ones, you would have to. So particularly, I would insist, if you have some fresh herbs, don't throw them in too early, because they actually cook and lose their flavor. Always just add them almost towards the end, and it will actually make the difference you're looking for. Right, so just going to reserve some of that, and we're also going to be adding some chopped chili. So all I did with this particular chili is I just cut it into strips right around, and as you can see, it opens up like a flower, and it actually makes it a little more easier for me to just chop it off and basically just add the chilies into the dish. So simple as that. Also a new technique to put in mind, if you're looking for just an easy way to get your chili, to just deseed your chili and just have the seeds out and have it just ready to chop really quickly beforehand. This is one particular technique that might actually be helpful to all of you. Right, so now this is done. Just going to turn off the heat quickly. And we're going to grab a spoon and we're just going to plate this. So I would traditionally just serve it as I was shown. So this would probably always be served at the center of the table, and this would just actually be passed around, and you'd actually have to just dish out your own portion. And as I mentioned earlier as well, rice being a very, very staple starch on the Moroccan island, on the Madagascar Islands, you actually find that rice actually becomes a very common accompaniment for most of their dishes, and is actually why the particular dish still actually remains well served or recommended to you to be served with rice. But alternatives to anything that can go with this dish, remember, you could always just go with mashed potatoes or just potatoes of your own choice. You could even go with couscous. There's so many varieties of starches out there in the market now. And as you continue to try new techniques and new ingredients, you're actually going to also continue to build a new rapport with your kitchen and also get a bit of balance with your technique of cooking. So as I said earlier, very, very simple dish. We're just finishing that off now. And I like to just add just a little bit of some chopped coriander on the top. It always just gives it a beautiful visual. And it actually just brings out also a bit of an aroma when that hits the table. So ladies and gentlemen, the dish is now done. It is as simple as you've been able to witness. I also like sometimes just to throw in a bit of some cherry tomatoes. This actually complements a dish of this kind very well, because remember the sweetness of the tomatoes and basically the sweetness of the tomatoes bottled up with a beautiful seasoning that comes through, and the flavors from the vegetables. The tomatoes bring a bit of a sweetness to it and a beautiful burst of juices, and it actually incorporates your ingredients and comes up with a very beautiful finish. So from my end, it has been a pleasure showing you how to make this. I hope you've learned something new today. I also recommend that you check out our Facebook page, leave your comments, inquiries, or any questions that you may have, and me and my producers will definitely be looking forward to getting back to you. So from my end, it has been a pleasure. I wish you the best season. I wish you the best of memories. And most of all, I wish you the best of dishes this particular Christmas season. So from my end, have a lovely Christmas. Have a lovely, beautiful holiday season. Enjoy with your family. And until the next episode of Dinner Guide, I am your host, Chef Andy, and I'll be seeing you soon. Ciao.